So, guys, I am very happy to have you. We were not here last Wednesday, despite you woke up for me, Joachim. Sorry for that.
And that was a very hard way, alarm clock.
Yeah, I wanted before this predicts thing happen, we wanted to have a chat. I wanted to have a chat with you guys about a hot topic on MultiversX this week. It's about governance, and all started with a thread that Davy posted in on X. Uh, which sparked different topics and pointed out the internal development often happens before the community discussion, which leads to default approvals, low participation, and a sense of a limited decentralization. So I would like to talk to you about different topics, different questions. But of course, guys, it's your discussion. So I just want you to continue this discussion. Of course, I invited Robert to join us in the show, but unfortunately, he missed my message. So we will have to do without him this morning. But I will give the mic to Davy first so he can introduce the topic since it was his post who started all the discussion on X. Yeah, Davy.
Yeah, so let me give you some context on why I made the thread. So I usually don't want to create drama, so I didn't make it too lengthy with all the reasoning on why I made the thread, but I can go a bit deeper into details now. And the reason why I made the thread was I someone told me about some things that could happen and are in discussion within the foundation. Like I know I'm not going into details on what that is. And the thing is, I asked myself, who decided this should be discussed? There should be business development on this, and there should be discussions that happen only privately. And so my worry is that even this time, what can happen is the foundation start researching, start designing, start developing, and at some point, once they finish it, all the things for this specific thing, they come with a governance proposal, and the community can only say, yes, I agree with this, or no, I don't agree with this. The actual negative part of this, there are two negative things, is that firstly, if there's something that is not in your liking, but you like 70% of the proposal, you're still going to vote yes because you don't want to for the foundation to have lost time, or you don't want the foundation to further delay the upgrade of the protocol. The second thing that could happen is that you lost months of development and the community says no, and so you basically lost ton of resources that at the end are paid by the community. So currently the MultiversX Foundation is not profitable. So all the value that basically all the engineering time that is spent by the foundation is paid by the community, which buys the token from the market, which funded the ecosystem at the beginning with the fundraise. So it needs to happen in a different way. Also, because who decide on this on the direction? So do we really want to be decentralized? Being decentralized also means that no central authority can decide on the direction. And so it should be multiple people that decide. Currently, it's not like that. We have a development team at the foundation that propose things, and at the end we have a CEO, so Benjamin Minku, that ultimately say, yes, okay, guys, we can go with that. It's not decentralized. So the development of MultiversX is centralized. Are we good with that? And if we are, should we go all over X saying that we are decentralized? I don't know. That's the discussion.
Thank you very much for this very clear introduction, Davy. So my first question for you and for Joachim, maybe now, how do you see this affecting the genuine decentralization and community engagement on MultiversX. Maybe Joachim, you want to bounce on it? Yes.
Yeah, I need to give a bounce on my response. Um, no, so the I think what Davy showed is and presented is a very fair question, because like as they said, decentralization is a lot of different points. Like you can have a very decentralized network if the decision making is powered by just one or a few entities, is not as decentralized on the decision making. The transactions, the validators themselves are decentralized, but there's certain point of centralization. That was one of the debates people had a lot with Ethereum and Infura. So basically, Infura is the infrastructure that connects most things to Ethereum, so MetaMask, etc. And there was an outage with Infura, and like half of the dApps, etc., couldn't connect to the blockchain. And that kind of showed that there are bottlenecks of centralization, even in the centralized model. But that coming directly from the core team, the people developing it, is another topic. And that's where, again, and I guess we get to that later, but like that's where a foundation and a core team are two different things, right? We've seen that on other blockchains, Solana, Ethereum. I'm not sure if Swiss has gone that way yet, but basically that you have the foundation, and then they give grants or incentives to third parties, including the founding team for some of them, to propose improvement and develop protocol improvements. For example, Solana went from one team to another after the Fire Dancer upgrade because I think they went satisfied with something and they moved on to someone who proposed a different model. And that allows for competitiveness on protocol updates, and also ensures that it's not always a priority seen by one private entity that are being focused on, but actually a foundation that has ideally no conflict of interest deciding with it. And since we don't have that, the second best way of doing it, or I would say even the best way of doing it, is to do it through governance, to do it from open discussion, as Davy is suggesting. And that's why I was quite strongly supporting Davy's discussion. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, yeah, you did. And because Robert is not here with us this morning, so guys, I will ask you, of course, to try to bring Robert's answers, but not just Robert's, because I think there's another one, Dobrita, I think, or maybe
Andrea,
another one
yeah.
from, yeah, okay, who brought the foundation's answers, vision. So if you guys can with honesty, because I know you are, so no problem about that. Maybe try to bring the foundation's answers, and so we can challenge them after. And I repeat, of course, to the audience that I invited Robert, but unfortunately he missed my messages. As a user, as a stakeholder, as just a community member, do you think this governance situation can be a real problem, or because Robert says, you know what, the community is not taking part in the governance. Actually, we tried, we launched a different initiative, the Agora is open, and so on. But actually, just the community doesn't care about governance and so on. So, do you think it's a consequence, or do you think it's a cause that the foundation does actually what they want? Davy?
So I start with some points. So usually when you want something to happen, you need to first prove to uh, like to believe in that thing yourself. And when we have, if you look at the Agora, for example, who are the people that are active there? They are mostly developers, they're mostly core developers, and people like me and Joaquin. So if you're looking for the top 10 people on the Agora, you have two of them here, ironically. And it's not good for Sazu. Like Sazu talks too much in uh, idealistic scenarios. So of course, you would like people to be active on the Agora like organically, but it mostly doesn't happen. Like for anything in life, like you can't expect things to happen magically. Like you need to do the correct actions for that thing to happen. So what could help? Like a good thing that Joachim suggested was, for example, for the founders to be active on the Agora. Like if you look at Lucian Minkon account on the Agora, he only did one single reply in the whole time that the Agora was live. How can you say the community, we expect you to be active on the Agora and to participate if even the top line is not active there and interacting with the community? I did some posts on the Agora. Did I receive a lot of responses from the team? Some responses from the top line? I didn't. So why should I be there if I don't? If it doesn't seem like they really care about my opinion? And to make a specific example of something that doesn't work with the current governance process, uh, Joaquin was among the ones that wanted dynamic NFTs to happen on MultiversX. So they said to the foundation, okay, we want this to happen on MultiversX. We would ask you, foundation, to start developing this, and we need X, Y, and Z for our project. So, and what happened is that the foundation started researching, they started designing, and at some point they came up with a proposal that had like huge trade-off compared to what was asked. So it at that point there were two options. Builders could say, okay, no, this is not what we wanted, and so scrape it and redo it, but they already waited for months and months. Or they could say, okay, this is not what we wanted, but okay, we'll accept the trade-off. It's not what we wanted. We'll have to do a lot of workarounds, and so it will not be as we intended. And it could have been different. Like if they started communicating with the builders when they started researching and designing the features, it probably would have come more tailored to what the builders wanted. And again, like since you're a blockchain and your goal is to build tools and infrastructure for businesses, if you lack the communication with businesses, you're basically not doing the first thing that you should do, which is exactly like building infrastructure for builders. Like you are B2B infrastructure at the end. This is what blockchain says. Yeah, you have some sending like coins, but is that? So they're basically failing at the the main thing that they should do.
Okay, Joachim, maybe can you bring Robert's point of
into
view?
this room.
Yeah, I summon Robert here. Yeah.
No, so basically what Robert is saying is that a bit what David started explaining is that like they believe, or again, I don't want to say that Sasu's point of view represents the foundation point of view. I think that is also very important, because there can be sometimes a bit of contradiction between team members, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I just think that like everyone has their ideas that get mixed up with what they're actually doing, and that's completely fine. But basically, that they are doing the necessary efforts of communicating and announcing through different channels. So basically, what he's saying is that they do, I forgot, town halls. They do developer calls, etc., where they talk about what they want to focus on the future, etc., and that we should take those moments to go against debates, etc., and that at that stage it doesn't need a formal process of them going through the agora, because the problem, he says, which again I disagree with, but we can get back to that later, is that the problem he sees is that if they make a proposal of something but then realize that actually they need to do changes because of technical limitations or the priorities change, etc., then suddenly there's something that the community has voted upon that and approved that they that is no longer needed, and that could cause backlash because suddenly we stop developing something that has been voted on. again, I'll keep my opinion on that for later. So that was one of the points. Another of the points I'm trying to recall. It was a very long thread for the people who followed it along. It was a very, very long thread. And another
But
point was what Davey was saying, that like,
what
yeah.
we can say before you continue is you, Joachim, are a tech guy, contributor of the ecosystem for years now. Davey is a like business and strategy contributor of the ecosystem for years now. So you guys, it will be interesting to have your the backstage, like the reality. How do guys like you are involved in the governance in those like the builders call, what's happening, is it really possible to say your point, how is it possible to reach the team to bring them some feedback, some ideas, and so on. So that's why I think you guys are the good guests for today. I give you back the mic, Joachim.
So so I think the problem is I've come to a stage where I've bonded with certain team members. I know who to talk for different things. Like I know people's different roles and what people can do. So uh, I know go through directly to the people that I need. So, and that is an unfair advantage that I have as a builder because I've been here so long. I've built connections, etc. So I would even say that like I do not represent your usual builders interaction. I used to, and I used to be quite. I There's been times where I've been quite frustrated because you feel like you're publishing in certain Agora, developer, Discord, Telegram, etc., and you're not hearing back, or you're hearing back from someone that actually can't have an impact, so they are bringing it forward, they get lost in translation, etc. Well, now I just knock on the right door and spam that door, which again isn't ideal. So I think that the impact as a builder you can have is limited, and I think that's what brings. I think it's like, is it a vicious circle or like a positive circle, in the sense that like if you try a couple times to get involved and doesn't succeed, you just abandon, you just say, oh, it's pointless, why am I wasting my energy doing this? The other way around, if you do something, and that's why I love the open source community in general, that if you do something and you see that people appreciate it, people give you feedback, people just notice you, it makes you want to give so much more. I'm just going to give a very random example that I did a couple of weeks back. There was a word game that had come out, and basically you could import custom dictionaries from a text file. And my dad loves Scrabble games, so I coded a quick script that allowed you to import any language you want. So I did Norwegian, French, and Catalan. And basically, I just posted that on GitHub, made it open source, and I've had like 10 pull requests of people wanting to add the language, etc. And like the fact that I respond quickly, add the languages, etc., keeps that thing alive, makes that people want to add the languages and can use the languages they want in that game. And I think that like that's the spirit, that's the mentality you want to have in an ecosystem that is built on openness, is that the people who contribute feel highly valued. Their pull requests, their GitHub contribution, etc., don't stay on red for weeks on end, and you don't have to like ping people. It is really proactive. The reality, I think, and that is the limitation, is resources. That takes resources. I think it's two things: it's culture and resources. Resources that you need people that do that and that have time to do that, and not already under the water doing 20,000 things, but also a culture thing. And then, and I'm going to stop talking after that, we come to another, I think, one of the biggest problems with MVX, at least at its start, and that's what Davey says. Most blockchains are just infrastructure, right? Their goal is to attract builders, because builders attract users, and users create transactions, and transactions pay the validator, and it becomes a good loop. The problem was MVX core team, MVX Labs, decided to do their own product. They want to do the Apple suite of that. So they were using resources, again, foundation resources too, to develop their products. They were competing with builders, and a lot of builders was like, I'm not sure what to build. if it is for the core team to then build it and be seen as an official product, while mine will be a knockoff. And that created a scare for a certain time, without even talking about the fact that a token need to be whitelisted on my exchange, etc. There was a lot of like gatekeeping for builders and openness. And I think that even if they've realized there was a mistake and changed underway, there is still that kind of Apple culture and the fact that like, I don't want to say they know best, but yeah, that they want to build the products, that the priority is what they would like to do. And I think that's where there's a bit of a difference in opinions with people like Davy and I, who are just like, no, your goal is just to facilitate as much as you can the life of builders. And that also goes through protocol updates. And that is why governance from the very start of development is important to get everyone involved in.
Okay, and do you know how the governance is handled on other ecosystem? Do you have any other examples of governance which, in your opinion, can be better based on other ecosystem? I don't know if you have any example, Davey, maybe which other governance works better or have I don't know, mechanisms that could be good for MultiversX, inspired of what's happening outside. Oh, I muted you. Sorry. Now we can listen to you. Sorry.
Yeah, I replied to Joaquim before, but I was
Sorry.
muted. So yeah, let me reply to what Joaquim said. Like, is a really good point, making a discussion on how Iron started, Iron MultiversX, and what MultiversX is now. Because the community that was created at the time was a community that expected the foundation to come up with the main applications, to expected to come with the main business development, the basically everything. So it's not easy. Like, the culture is not here for the community to contribute. And the main fault for that is the foundation itself, because they started creating a culture where the community didn't feel like they had to contribute. Because the main contribution, the main, like basically everything relevant in the ecosystem should have happened from the foundation. So this is what a lot of people signed for. So they signed for a foundation that was building an Apple suite type of ecosystem. So it's not easy now, because the ones that we have since the beginning, now we have in mind that, yeah, the foundation needs to come with this, the foundation needs to come with the right direction, the foundation is this like God type of individuals that know everything and they're always right. And I don't know how to change that, because it would mean saying to a big part of the community, and we're in part we're already saying that to part of the community, the reasons that you join MultiversX are not here anymore. And at the same time, we also have a lot of clashes between what we're currently saying. So we want public contribution, we want decentralization, we want this and that, and what is actually in reality. So we'll have to change actually the culture on the chain. And then, yeah, also money, operations, like, yeah, then you also need to execute. And I don't know, like on other chains, it is different because you don't have this culture. So you have a different culture. You don't have the community expanding the foundation to come with products. Because in fact, the foundation purposely never wanted to build products. Like Solana never built applications, Ethereum never built applications, Ethereum never didn't want to build applications, and for this reason, they had consensus being created and consensus creating MetaMask, for example, because they wanted to be credible neutral, and they didn't want for the ecosystem to rely, for the community to rely on the foundation to build products. We have only a few chains that are still doing this application thing, which are Hyperliquid, Sui, and maybe we'll find some more of them. But it's mostly about culture, because at the end, like the governance technical implementation is not that much relevant now, because you can't really enforce some things, and even if you can't, at the end, is not formality for a lot of chains, because validators decide what to push into mainnet.
Okay, but maybe we can mention that this 100% protocol layer involved blockchain gave a lot of money to um, like external teams to build the apps and the protocol instead of building them themselves. And so the answer from the foundation to why they decided to build them themselves is we didn't want to give money because we didn't rise as much money as the other blockchain that we mentioned before. And second, we wanted to have all the onboarding apps, all the the basics like a launchpad, a dex, a wallet, and so on at our image to onboard the next billion people. And after they will be developers arriving and so on, so they will develop the rest of the ecosystem. This is how I understand their strategy, and maybe you have another vision about that. Yeah, Davey
So,
wanted to
yeah,
bounce.
we don't have the numbers, but like how much money did they spend acquiring Trust? How much money did they spend acquiring TwistPay? So did they really not have money to give grants to like valuable projects to build a MultiversX? I don't think so. It was a decision. So I, we don't have the numbers, and this is also not good for transparency. But we can expect for them to have spent some millions on acquiring those companies, and also how much money did they spend on managing those companies that were not profitable. So X Portal, like building X Exchange, they also spent millions on that. So they had money to give grants. Like you don't need to give millions to every project. Like you can even give grants of, I don't know, 100K project, and they would have the money to build.
Yes, you're right. Joachim, you wanted to up, and actually, you will double up.
Yeah, I'm doubling the antes. I think what Dave is saying is very interesting. Is basically, and it goes back to your question, Jeremy. It's like even if you pay a third party to do something, which is normal, um, there's nothing bad about that. And I would actually say it's quite good because like it's one more builder indirectly. You've paid someone to do it, so suddenly it adds a builder to your ecosystem that once they're done building that product might actually decide to build another product, will have their own support, will have their own thing, because that is also one of the bottlenecks, right? Um, all the resources of customer support, etc., still exist on the MultiversX team, even if certain products have been divided. So you're kind of creating products that you need to maintain, even though it's the same team creating them. So as Davey said, I've I am also part of the thing that they had funds. Yes, they only raised like a little bit, but obviously then the token performed. They had a massive treasury. They were even willing to invest over 100 million into improbable IO. So there were funds. The reality is that they wanted those funds were used internally and for internal ideas. What's the problem with that is that either it works, and if it works, you're the king of the hill, you're Apple basically, because you have this very well connected ecosystem, you have a very distinct UI that is smooth against your products, etc. Like, if it works, it's great, but like it's the biggest gamble in Web3 history because you're basically all counting on yourself to succeed. Or you go the other way, if you make a lot of smaller bets on a lot of builders, yes, most will fail, but it doesn't matter because they've tried to build something and you're not the one who failed. You just supported someone who failed. And that is a very, very, very different reality than, for example, Davey talks about X money, fiat, and crypto. But we could even talk about the example of X Fabric. Like, how much resources, internal resources, and therefore money did the development of X Fabric cost for in the end to be scraped shortly after the demo went out? Um, like that is extremely costly because not only did they cost them money with wage, etc., it's also resources they could have used. Thank you, Jax. they could have used for protocol updates, because now we're kind of like catching up on the delay of blocks being quite slow on MultiversX compared to other chains. While if their only focus was, let's make building on MultiversX super easy, let's make transactions, let's make the protocol as competitive as we can, and that is it. We're not creating any products that we leave to the others. Who knows? Maybe Supernova would have already been live by now. But yeah, I'll pass it back to you, David.
Something else that I've been thinking is, since they had their own projects, so export and easy change, I think they probably lost a lot of time doing internal discussions, strategy, business development, only specifically for their own projects. Like how many discussions happen internally for the strategy of East Exchange, for example? I guess a lot of them. If East Exchange weren't a reality, and so they went for grants to external projects to build on MultiversX, I think also their own mentality, strategy, and culture would have been different. And so a different mentality where instead of asking yourself, how can I make my own project succeed? The mentality change into how can I make the whole ecosystem succeed? Because I don't think this discussion happened as much as we needed. And also now, like I'm not seeing that much strategy happening. Like we have a DeFi project like launching today, no? It's good. Like I'm not against that, but I see that there's not really ecosystem strategy because they are replicating something that could have been different, could have differentiated the ecosystem and work in tandem with what we already have. Also, other examples are Ashwab team was building an EBC connection with Cosmos, and MultiversX decided to work on that at the same time, and so they had to basically scrape all the research that they did. And this speaks to me not enough communication and not enough system thinking, which is extremely needed because we are building something that has value because of the compound value in the ecosystem. So basically, you have different applications that compound because of composability, and that's the moat. Like that's what makes blockchain really valuable. But if you're not willing to get into these deep discussions for that, how can you ensure that you use resources at the best possible in the best possible way?
I think
Yeah.
we're totally aligned, Davey, and we've been for a while. And as you said, like there's this there's this mentality that I think like there's still residues of it internally that makes that. And as we said, like there's been these discussions of potentially economical discussions, etc. And like, and you see that it's this is this part of like, oh, we'll make a proposal to the community so the community can approve it, as is what has been happening with a lot of things. I'm going to take the example of X Exchange V3. There was a governance vote, the first governance vote on the chain for governance for X Exchange V3, and it was basically, do you want X Exchange V3 or do you not want X Exchange V3? And X Exchange V3 included a lot of things in it. It included obviously the new UI improvements, etc., but also included the new max economics. And basically with the whole energy model, etc. And basically, I'm not saying I'm against it. I think there were certain parts that could have been done differently, but that is up to everyone. But basically, it's like, do you want to approve this thing that we spent 1 year doing, or shall we scrap it? There's no middle ground. There's nothing. While real
And
governance,
it's everything or nothing,
yeah,
so it's
exactly.
completely binary. It's too late to involve in the different discussions. So yeah, it's definitely discouraging. And you know what, when we see the percentage of the vote, it's almost like 99% or
Yes,
98% for a
98
yes.
usually. Yeah.
So it's like like a totalitarian country election
It's
rate.
pointless. It
It's
just is.
completely pointless.
It just
I
gives the
made
illusion of choice.
yeah, I made a post about this. It's just marketing. So the problem is even in governance, the marketing is not well done. Marketing would be better if it was 80%. so you give the impression that there is discussion. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
99% is like a Putin election rate. It's even more than a Putin
but
election rate.
and that goes back to Bernard, which is quite interesting. Is that for something to be approved, if someone from makes because now we can block 500 EGLD makes a proposal, etc. They need 60 over 66 approval rate for it to pass. So it's not, you don't need a majority, you need a super majority for it to pass. So, but, and that's where like it just means that a lot of um, controversial points wouldn't make it. Like it's kind of funny because if you think about, for example, I'm going to take the French elections as an example. We would never have a president. We would just keep re-voting and revoting and revoting because no president in the last decade, I would say, has had more than 66% votes on even on the second round when there's only two people left. So like, and I know it's inspired by the Cosmos governance, which has good and bad things. But basically, that's the issue, right? It's like we want this hyper confident vote system that if there is any form of controversy, it doesn't create any changes. Um, and we want to do the proposal when everything is ready. Well, I think it would have been so much more interesting that, like, yes, there's a bit of initial research by MultiversX Labs or by private other actors now that Burnout is live. And there's like, okay, we have this suggestion for a protocol update, and it's divided in 10 different points. We're going to make 10 different proposals that we want to make part of a release we're going to call Champagne Supernova. And in those, but you're going to vote on each of those 10 points. Maybe there's two of those 10 points that are not going to get a super majority and therefore aren't going to get picked. And therefore you only have 8 parts that release. And that's completely fine. And yes, on the way, there might be changes, there might be updates, and that's completely fine. We're not trying to slow down or make it extremely rigid. What we just want is to people to feel involved and have a say on every single feature that the protocol is going to have. Because indirectly, if they are part of the conversation, they will be much more ready when it comes. We've had a lot of releases where the features that come with it haven't been used because people weren't involved in the creation of those features, in the development of those features. And it's a bit the same. We had the big topic on gas penalties, and I'm not going to restart that whole debate. But a lot of projects, including official projects, um, still had gas penalty issues after Burnout went live um, because not everyone had been kept up to page on how to do it and how to calculate it. And actually, one thing that we had been promised would be ready before Burnout came a few days later. But it's just like having proper conversation about each point would feel builders and users much more involved. And yes, and that's where Robert Sassu comes back and says, yeah, but like it's very technical. People don't care about technical, but some do. We're not expecting everyone to care about everything. But like if you talk, for example, of EGLD economics, most people will care, most holders will care, and most holders will get involved. That's not technical, that's economical. Does that mean that everyone will have valuable opinions? No, but that's decentralization, that's democracy. You allow anyone to have an opinion, even if you like it or not, even if you think it's stupid or not. That's part of it. And then for technical things, you will have more technical people who will answer it. And if they pass it to the vote, people will go vote because they will feel that they want to have a say, and maybe they will listen to people they follow that they know are technical for it, and it actually has this good effect that it creates a community where people listen to technical people listen to economical people for the different topics, and that's a very healthy system, and that's what democracy should be about.
I agree with you totally. Joachim, uh, sorry, Davy.
Yeah, also like when we had this like discussion with builders, like something that I also ask myself is like the reason why they didn't want to make a gradual decrease with the gas estimations is that they would need to rework some code and probably delay the the protocol upgrade by 1 or 2 weeks. The question that I ask myself is why are you deciding is it is not worth it to delay 2 weeks the proposal? So why do you have this power to decide it's good to push the update even if it goes against some builder's opinion, only because you don't want to delay the protocol upgrade by 2 weeks. So you're basically pushing for that decision to be taken by the community without the community even knowing about this issue. So I don't know, like it doesn't feel like really decentralized governance to me.
It is not at all. And you know what, Joachim, I found one of your message was the most acid one, in my opinion, is when you said there are so many projects that you decided to launch and that failed or never came to live. And actually, you never asked for the community about it. I don't know if you remember this post. You were mentioning, of course, all the X thing. Um, my question is, and I asked you directly, so I want to ask you live when MultiversX announced at X Day and before and elsewhere about this products, about the strategy, we will launch X Fabric, we will launch X this and so on. Most of the community were like congratulating, we're saying it's great, it's amazing, it's an Apple ecosystem, all branding the same. So everybody was happy. Everybody said it's great, it's huge. I mean, publicly.
Sure.
But that's the way. And after it fails, or after the strategy has changed, focusing on the L1, everybody says, yeah, it was a mistake, you should have asked us, and so on. So let's be honest. Don't you think the community is part of the fail? Because it's easy at the end of the movie to say, I knew who was the murderer. So that's my question, especially when guys like me and many others are criticizing the strategy and so on. We're called fudders, but actually, you know, so I let you answer, Joaquin, because I know that in private you're everything except cult boy, but in public you are more and more critics. But before it were you were not. So Joaquin
Yeah.
first, and after David. So with the question to summarize, what's the role, what's the responsibility of the community and the builders who maybe said nothing at the time in the failing and the governance as it is at the moment. Thank you very much, Joaquin.
So I think there's two things. The first one being that, as we've said earlier with David, there was a culture thing, right? That MVX was this Apple solution with their own products. So I think there's two main X days, right? There's the X day in Paris where the rebranding took place, and there was a launch of X World was announced.
Weddings
Um,
Day. Weddings Day.
that's the $10 million questions. Um, no, but like, and there was I can't remember what it was called, but like there was kind of like the old version of X Fabric. I can't remember what it was called, Metaspaces or something like that. And like they showed E-Apes as an example of it, where like projects would have like kind of like the blog that was part of X Spotlight that wasn't called X Spotlight at the time. Anyway, and so there was a lot of product announcement, including X etc. There's two things. There's the marketing announcement and there's the reality of things. I think that is one thing, right? Like the Apple has a tendency to announce a product when it's ready. Oh, it's going to be ready like the next month. The exception being the Vision Pro that was announced well in advance, but again was for development purposes and because they opened it to builders. But anyway, um, the main goal is like they announced something very exciting, and we had a bit the same recently with all the AI features of Exporter that got announced during X Day Bucharest, and then the AI feature we got on Exporter last month was kind of night and day between what we got announced. So that's one thing. Like, um, And the second thing is, I've actually been. I remember X Day Paris very, very well because I was very excited about it, even though not about all the announcements, but basically I was sitting next to Tikapo during a lot of the presentations, and we were discussing. I was like, this gives Apple vibes, and I'm not sure if this is a good thing. Like they're trying to, like they're announcing product after product after product, like just one more thing um, uh, gimmick. And the problem with that was like, what they don't talk about us. They don't talk about us, the builders. They're talking about all those great products that the user will be able to use. And again, the culture at MVX at the time was that it was, and from the community was that. The problem is, how do you migrate from that to what they're trying to be now, with less focus on new products, etc., more focus on protocol, attracting users and builders. The problem is you have a community that has been educated to that, and then suddenly you keep looking at the MultiversX account, and it's like, when's the next new product? When's the next new feature? And the only thing you see them talking about is protocol updates and other projects that aren't theirs. And I see that as very positive, but I think there's people who were used to the big announcement that are still saying, oh, we got promised so many things in the past that aren't being developed or aren't being released, and there's nothing new coming. I'm no longer getting excited of MultiversX as a private company providing products. They just seem to focus on infra, which again, I think is a great thing, but it means that the culture needs to change from people getting excited about third party community projects and not the official products of MBX. In the same way as if you look at the Ethereum Foundation, it's boring as hell. Like if you're just a consumer, like, very nice mug, ex London edition. Um, so uh, ex the most foundations are boring as hell, and most core developers teams that do protocol updates are boring as hell to follow, because the what they talk about is for builders by builders, and that's it. The exciting part is everywhere else. While on MDX, we're kind of used to looking at this main account and it's like, oh, if there's something exciting, it's going to come out from there. So I think there's a culture shift that is happening slowly. The problem is we still have many holders that, because a lot of the products either got cancelled or never released, are still just like, oh, but they haven't dropped something in forever. But that's not true. It's just that they've decreased their resources and are now focusing on what matters the most as the core team, which is the protocol and attracting builders. So I think they're on the right direction. I just think it needs to go faster and harsher in a sense,
Okay,
especially
but
with
did
the
you answer my question about the
yeah.
responsibility of builders who kept silence or were encouraging all the strategy, all the decisions, all the features, all the product that the company decided to launch, and now they're saying, guys, you never consulted us and so on.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
Davy.
I'm definitely on the this I was definitely on the silent part. But like we had certain chats, etc. But I'm more of a private doors person, which has is a double-edged sword, because you're just like, we're supposed to be this open, decentralized net, or we are this open, decentralized network. So communication and feedback should be too, right? And it shouldn't be considered third as soon as you disagree with someone. Um, and so I've come to agree that debates should be held publicly, even if opinions are unpopular, etc. Because then you can't. There's one very powerful thing that you can do and is used in lots in totalitarian entities. It's just like, you can file a complaint or you can give your feedback through this private channel and you'll hear back from us. The beauty with that is that you can convince that they're the only one having this opinion. And there was a very big scandal actually in the UK a few years ago about post offices. The post offices, to say very, very quickly, are privately owned, and they license the right to be a post officer, but they have to use accounting software from a specific company, etc. Basically, everyone had problems with this accounting software that kept doing mistakes and saying that they were making more money and therefore had to pay more money than what they actually did. And people were filing complaints to Post Office Limited about this software error, but because it was done through private channels and no one was speaking publicly about it, Post Office Limited kept saying to them, "You're the only one having that problem. The problem must be you. You have to pay the difference, etc." And so that is the limitations of private channels, and I think that's why they are dangerous if they
So
are not being
do
used
you,
honestly.
so do you and after I will let maybe Davy speak if he wants. Do you regret for not having maybe more vocal, more public, or you keep thinking it's the good way to do? Um,
I think
yeah.
it's a balance in how you message it, and I think you should. I still think you should try private channels first. If that doesn't work, going public. But also, I think there needs to be more entities like XLNs, etc., that feels that you can give your opinion to a smaller group first. We have that group in France too, with Early is a private French group, but like where we can actually give feedback and hear other people's opinion before taking it further. And that also gives you the confidence that it makes sense. And I also think that's why people consider us, the French, to be very complaining, is because we actually complain together in a private group and then go publicly about it, about certain things. But like to give an example where I wasn't silent was XSafe. XSafe was announced during X Day Paris. And we have been working with Gappa Labs
Is it
on.
the stuff that minted 400 quadrillion USDC?
No, no, no. That has nothing. That no, you can't blame the X safe on that. It's that is an indirectly that could have been done with just the multi-sig contract, but it wasn't even a multi-sig contract problem. It's just that it worked well with that one. It was the simplest way of doing it. Anyway, basically, XSafe got announced, and it was actually developed by a third party, and now has been taken over by Misha of VLIP, which I think is a very good thing. But basically, we had because we were missing, and there was a lot of scams happening at the time, etc. So we were saying, let's do a UI um, for multisigs, so people can use it without having technical knowledge, etc. So we started developing it, and then we kind of found randomly on DevNet, we found the official, actually done by the team, which actually never got published because XSafe went live, the official product by the team. And basically, we made a tweet as Garpa saying like, this is why we won't continue development of our multisig solution, because we're seeing that MBX has already worked on one, and that there's no point. There's no point then, because we won't be able to monetize it. We won't be able to generate any revenue from it. So why waste more resources on it? Even though the monetization plan wasn't that great, it was mostly just to give solutions to the community. And then kind of like XSafe came like 7 months after X Day. So like, but it was like this. I kind of wish that when we did this public comment, somebody come to us and say like, no, keep doing. We need more solutions, no matter what, etc. But it didn't, so we dropped it. But I still think that like that's the kind of small things. So I would say, yeah, I remain mostly silent on things that I disagreed with and gave my opinion in private. And yes, I think that the problem is when opinions are taken for entertainment or clickbait or whatever you want to call it, and are actually not being used to bring constructive feedback, but just to generate content. And we've had a few instances those last couple of weeks or months about that, where like it's not even productive. It's just taking every feedback and turning it into something negative, and that is the limitations of social. But that's where you just need to split the criticism from how it is delivered. Because by the end of the day, it's the content that matters.
Davey, you wanted to say anything about this point, the responsibility of builders and community members for not being um, v- vocal enough? Yeah, you are unmuted.
Okay, yeah, I don't know, like it's also a matter of actual results and execution. So when they came with, I never liked the idea of its fabric personally. So people privately know about it. But let's say about XHA. So I wasn't against the foundation building its own DEX because of I don't know, because I thought at the time that they had the skills and the knowledge to build something innovative. The issue is that what X Exchange built was not really innovative. So we need to face reality. Like the actual model of X Exchange is a pretty simple AMM DEX. They don't have anything innovative into the capital efficiency, which is what the market cares about. And that's it. Like they never came with something that actually was deserved the attention of the wider crypto market. So they never came with something as innovative as CowSwap, as FluidDex, as I don't know, as Hyperliquid with their purpose change, Uniswap with 3, V4. So they built something pretty easy and they didn't seem to understand what was actually needed. When it came with this fabric, like I know some people, even myself, tried X Fabric, and what they came up with after months of development was not enough. Like the product was pretty simple and it didn't have a chance to succeed and be competitive. So potentially what they did was extremely risky, but could have worked. Like if we look at other blockchains like Hyperliquid, they made a big bet as well. A big bet as well. So they built their own application, they built their own L1, which is almost entirely relying on a single application, which is their purpose change. And it's working. So it's a possible successful strategy. The issue is that the way that they executed this strategy didn't work because the products that they built are not competitive enough to
But
attract ton of
but
users.
let's take your example of Hyperchain. Hyperchain is an app chain. Like, let's be honest, Hyperchain is an app chain, right? And there's a lot of app chains that are designed to solve one simple product, to be adapted to one simple product, and that's what makes them extremely good in that one feature. MultiversX never pretended to be that. MultiversX pretended to be like blockchain at the scale of internet. It wanted to be classic L1 that you can build anything and that is adapted for everything and not specialized in anything, like Ethereum, like Sui, etc. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that's why I was very excited about MultiversX. But you can't succeed. I don't think you can succeed with the strategy of building your own products then. I think like either you make an app chain because you know a product and there's no chain that is adapted to it, and you want to create design it your way, which is what we're doing with Galpa, or you want to create a chain for everyone to build them. Then it's not your role to build products.
And also, like, you need to understand how to allocate resources. So at the time where MultiverseX was acquiring companies, Solana was spending those money on hackathons. So it was a different strategy. And it was an error, like it's clear now. Like they could have come with some extremely innovative application. So if X Exchange came with the same innovation as Hyperliquid, like we wouldn't be here talking negatively about the old foundation strategy. But it didn't happen. So they had the strategy, they failed with that. They didn't manage to succeed with a good execution. And now we're here trying to find ways to solve the like to make the change successful after they basically failed at that.
So let's uh, try to finish this discussion by, I hope, an optimistic point of view. Do you think by reading the answers from core team members, do you think your post has been heard by the foundation? Do you think things will move? Robert opened the door to governance call or something. Maybe you will remind us. And yeah, do you think things can change in the coming month? Maybe not before supernova, because as always, things are way too much advanced. to change anything now, but maybe in 2020, 2026. So what's your vision about that? Maybe Davy first.
It could be like, I hope so. I hope it actually happens. So if I came to publicly with a criticism, so it wasn't really that direct. So I always try to be to not create too much drama. Is because we already talked with the foundation about this issue many times, and also many months before. So it's not something new. Like it's something that we criticized the foundation already, and at some point, like as I said, someone told me about something that they are discussing internally, and so at that point I said, okay, the discussions that we had, the criticisms that we made them did wasn't well received, and so I'll go public with this. And yeah, I hopefully hope so. Like for example, now we have the economics that, and so they proposed some changes to actually solve some critical issues that we're going to have. And I want that discussion to be public. I don't want for the foundation to design things, to come up with all the solutions, and then come with a proposal for the community to say yes or no. That's not something that I want.
Oh, we lost Joachim. So, Davy, yeah, you will continue to try to make the governance improve. But yeah, I think as like everybody, if you have the feeling that all your contributions or your opinions or your feedback are not heard, the risk is that you discourage. So it would be a pity for the ecosystem.
Yeah, so let's say that in general, it's really difficult to convince people to participate in governance. Like there's this thing like they call it governance apathy in other chains. So even extremely successful protocols don't have that much participation in their governance. It's even worse if you don't make any effort for
But
to
the thing
avoid
is,
the governance
um,
apathy.
I think it's not about how if it were if people will use it. It's to allow them to use it. Governance. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
if all the mechanisms are good or well thought, if people don't use them, it's up to them. But if the mechanisms are not like favorable for a good governance, it's up to the foundation, and it's one more perimeter for attacks against the foundation. So they should do anything they can to make it better. If people use it, fine. If they don't, it will not change. Foundation will do what they want. You know what I mean? So it's just about making what they can, what it in their control.
I think the actual goal is building something as the internet. So the internet doesn't have a company that rules things and develop things. So it's mostly contribution from companies all over the world. But if we want that to happen in 20 years, 30 years from now, what are the actual things that we need to do to move towards that future? Because at some point, we'll not want to pay every year a foundation to develop the protocol. The ideal solution would be for different external entities to contribute to the protocol. So if we look at Solana, they're trying to enforce that by paying external software companies to develop the protocol. So we have Anza, we have Jump, we have also other smaller companies. The foundation itself is not developing much at Solana, almost nothing. Like mostly is BD people going around and setting the business things, and that's it for Solana. For Ethereum, is not like that yet, but from what I see from the discussions, even them want to come to that ideal result. I don't know when, maybe 10 years, 20 years from now. Same thing as is for the internet, same thing as is for a lot of open source infrastructure or protocols that we have now on the internet. They don't have a specific company. They have open contribution from everyone that actually works. Like it's the most decentralized outcome. And so do we
Yeah.
want that? I think yes. Like he's the best thing if we want to really build something decentralized.
Okay, we'll keep watching the evolution of governance. Now, thank you very much, Davy, for coming this morning. Won't be back as work on the flat. Okay, Joachim will not come back, but he says bye bye to the audience and to you. Davy had some internet problem. Thank you very much, Davy, for coming this morning, and all the best for you this summer. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
You too. So this show is over. I hope you enjoyed the AMA with the COO of Predix and this very interesting and insightful discussion around MultiversX governance. If you liked it, share it, like us, subscribe to our networks, and see you next Wednesday for a new GM Web3 dedicated to MultiversX. Take care of yourself and see you soon. Bye bye.